What's up, Internet? You're tuned in episode 2 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games' weekly podcast about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. It's a good week to talk about Steam Deck, but of course, isn't every week a good week to talk about Steam Deck? Let's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm excited. I'm really excited. Big week. We've been playing some games, not the main one we're going to be talking about on the show, but like
unfortunately,
Rollerdrome on Steam Deck. Oh my god, I'm obsessed. Can't wait.
And of course, everyone's favorite game, Multiversus. Of course, I'm playing a lot of that, you know. But yeah, welcome to episode 2, everybody. Thank you so much for the reaction to episode 1. So many of you tuned in for that first one, and it was a really an awesome, warm welcome to episode 1. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm excited to jump into episode 2 here because we're going to be talking about AAA games on Steam Deck and specifically PlayStation games, because there is, of course, the big release of Spider-Man Remastered on PC this week, which everybody's talking about. But there's also some stuff that, in the game that is pointing to the idea of a PlayStation launcher coming to PC. So, of course, the question on our mind immediately is, okay, but will it work on Steam Deck? Right? So we're going to talk all about that, the implications of it, and how, we hope it may work out. But before that, of course, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of August. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the real to the real, and we appreciate your support of this fine program and our whole slate of programs. Hey, if you're a new viewer and you're just joining us for the Steam Deck podcast for the first time, go check out our other shows. We got some good stuff. Our sister show, the Flip Screen Game podcast, and Nintendo Noise. Truly some great content. If you want to find links to all the places you can find that content, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find our Discord, our Twitch channel. Anywhere we are on the web, you'll find a link to it over there, including our brand new YouTube channel. If you haven't already gone and checked it out, Flip Screen Live is our new second channel where we'll be having all of the archives of our Twitch streams go up within about 24 to 48 hours of the original broadcast, depending on the video itself. So go check that out. We've already got some content up there. We'll have a new episode going up pretty soon now where Steve is getting back into Shenmue after quite a break. Retro Wednesdays are back, so you're going to want to go check that one out because I'm sure it was a good time.
Oh, it was a really good time. We've got some new audio alerts coming from that game. Like Wong saying "Oh no" was hilarious, and like it's just like ridiculous. That game, it just gives such comedy gold from its absolute terrible acting. It's wonderful.
So if you want to see Steve go play through that, make sure you go give the YouTube channel a subscribe, or go tune in on Twitch every Wednesday when he goes live. But, of course, if you want to go above and beyond to show that support, head over to the Patreon where you can get a bunch of good perks and goodies, including our exclusive show, One More Thing, including early access to this show and all of our other shows. It's a good time and, of course, the best way to show your support of the channel and all the stuff that we're trying to do over here. But that's enough shilling for now. Let's jump into the main event here. Spider-Man Remastered has come to PC, and it is already setting records. Quite a few records here. It is right now the number 4 bestseller on Steam. And Steve, clarify for me, is that right now? Like just current bestseller? Yeah. Right. Important context there. But it's
the 172nd most highly rated game of all time.
Wow. That's pretty good. Top 200 of all time
days,
on the platform? Yeah, wow, in only 4 days. That's pretty good. Yeah. Makes sense. Really good game.
Yeah, it's solid. Really solid. Like, the concurrents have been averaging around 35,000, peaked at 66,000 on the first day.
Which is high for a single-player game.
500,000. Yeah, really high. Estimate around 500,000 sales so far, unique players, which is insane within 4 days as well. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not Elden Ring levels yet, but I think it could probably get up there. Spider-Man clearly has pulling power.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, no surprise there, right? But it's interesting. I mean, that hitting that 500,000 mark makes it one of the most successful, or on track, I guess, to be probably the most successful by quite a bit of PlayStation's efforts on Steam so far. Because currently, I believe God of
And it's got to
War.
be one of their most successful on PlayStation as well,
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which
So
again,
it makes
right?
sense. It's
It's
most
Spider-Man.
successful on PlayStation. It's going to be most successful on PC. People really like Spider-Man.
Yes, that is true. I am people. So yeah, great to see. Glad to see that the PC audience can finally get their hands on it, and play around with it. I know there's a lot of really crazy mods already coming out. I've already seen one that lets you play the game as Stan Lee or lets you play as Kingpin, and there's a lot you can imagine them getting up to in that.
Yeah.
Just with the tool set that's been granted, right? Because it's just that realization of New York is so incredible, and there's just so many Marvel characters or otherwise that you could see thrown in there just to make things a little bit wackier. But I'm excited to see like what the modding community is going to do with like custom like suits and stuff like that, and because there's some great suits in the base game, but you got to imagine that the modding community is probably going to get in there and make a ton of other crazy wacky stuff.
Oh yeah, they'll be fired up 100%. It always fascinates me how the levels of creativity that the modding community has, which is awesome. But even aside from that, the feature set that Nix has put into this, like the level of like detail that they really went into to make this a true PC game rather than just a port of a console game, they went above and beyond. There is additional textures that they've added which go like higher res than the PlayStation can go. There's enhanced ray tracing support. We've got Nvidia's DLSS in there, and there's like specific profiles that are aimed more towards the Steam Deck, of course. Like there's like a low graphics mode, and there's even like lower than low. I can't remember what they call it, but it's you can really eke out the performance if that's what you want to go for. But I think the majority of people will probably want to play this one on like 30 frames per second locked. I don't think it'll even really hit 40, but it's worth a try. And there's probably people out there who have been experimenting and putting up the best settings. So have a dig around on the Steam Deck subreddit.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I want to kind of touch on that a little bit. Because I know that you've played a good amount of kind of bigger AAA type games on the Steam Deck. And
yeah,
I'm interested in, I guess, demystifying that a little bit. Because I have definitely not played as many, but the game that I tried and spent the most time with it in that fashion has been Jedi Fallen Order, which is not a super new game, right? Like it came out in 2019.
It's up there though, it's an Unreal Engine 4 game, so it's still the latest engine.
Yeah.
Discounting Unreal Engine 5, but like it's still pretty demanding game.
It's inarguably a modern game,
Yeah.
And I would say my experience with it was a bit of a mixed bag. And I wanna chat with you about it, because I know that you've done it more than me and have had a good time with it. And I think this is one of those things where the difference between us that we called out in the first episode, right, where like you are happy to tinker and I really just kind of want to be able to pick up and play. And I think that is where my experience with it struggled the most, because with Jedi Fallen Order, right, like I got the game. Picked it up on the Steam sale, which was great, and it runs well on Steam Deck. And I was playing in handheld mode, and graphically the look and experience and feel of it was solid. But I was in an environment where I didn't want to put on headphones, but I didn't like the experience of, like, I was struggling with the audio because of how good the sound design is in that game, right? And like wanting to get all of those great, Star Wars sound effects and have that, that the layer to it. So I was like, all right, you know what? Like, why don't I use this as an opportunity to test doing, like putting it through an adapter and putting it on the television, right? Which is something that I'd really only done once or twice with retro games. And it was like, how do I do this like faux Switch experience with this? And it worked okay, but I was frustrated with the experience of like it wasn't seamless, right? Because we don't have the Steam Dock yet, which hopefully
I actually don't think it's the Steam Dock that's going to do anything magic. I think that is just it's pretty much what we've got already, just in a nice package and all neatly put together with a Steam Deck logo on. I think it's the software that's not quite there yet. I've been docking it pretty much since day one. They've already added in some additional settings that you might want to go dig through.
Really?
That only show up when you're in docked mode, which is scaling the UI and scaling the image. By default, it does not scale the UI or the image, and you have to turn the toggles on in the settings.
But they've added that functionality, you're saying?
Yeah, that feature's in there. I think it's only in preview at the moment. So if you're on beta, you might need to switch to preview.
Okay.
And if you're on stable, it's probably a ways down the line. There's also another setting that's a per game setting, which is game resolution. The majority of games by default will max out the resolution at 800p, which is the internal resolution of the the Steam Deck's screen. You can override that. So go into the properties. So if you go onto a game, click the hamburger menu, go to properties. There's a setting in there called game resolution, and you can override that either for the internal screen and the docked screen or just the docked screen. Set that to be whatever you want. You'll probably want it to be up to 1080p, which will unlock all of the 16:9 aspect ratios at that point, and you're probably going to want to set it to 720p, which is 1280 by 720. Another thing you're going to want to take advantage of when you do that is FSR, which is one of the scaling methods that you have. FSR doesn't work when the game is set to full screen mode. It needs to be set to windowed mode. So in the game settings, there's always a toggle in pretty much every game. You can have windowed full screen or full screen. Most games default to full screen. FSR doesn't work when a game's in full screen, but if you change it to windowed or windowed full screen, FSR will kick in, and that's AMD's built-in up-res thing, and it'll make it like sharper and try and do a little bit of rebuilding.
I think I noticed that. I think when I put it in windowed mode, I thought it looked sharper, and I think I left it that way.
It will look sharper.
So that explains that. See, this is the beauty, right? Because you're here solving all my problems, Steve. I'm learning that there is a solution. And I was futzing around. I was trying to do the Steam Deck thing. I was trying to like be like, okay, like let me figure this out like a PC gamer. I'm gonna play with the settings and look some stuff up. And I guess there wasn't a solution at that time. And the beauty of the Steam Deck, right, is that like we're in that early Wild West period. So it's like every other week, it's like, oh, that thing that you wanted, we added it. Cool, it's there now.
Yeah, those two settings are probably in the last month or so. The game resolution override is probably the biggest one that will affect you. The UI scaling. I don't know if when you plugged it into your TV, the UI just looked tiny and it was like ridiculous. Like all of the the game artwork was tiny, which is what I had when I initially docked.
I don't think so.
They then changed it so you can. So you've probably already played it with the UI scaling already on, which is good. Because it scales it up, still the same resolution. It kind of fakes the resolution. It does like sets an internal resolution of 800p, but then outputs to 4K or whatever your screen's resolution is. The other thing I always would recommend is, I don't know how you've got yours set up currently, but I would turn VSync in the game off, so have an uncapped frame rate output from the game. And I would use Steam Deck's built-in or SteamOS's built-in frame rate cap and set that to 30 or even 40 if you wanted to. If your TV is 120 frames per second, if it can support 120 hertz, you can get away with 40. You can output 40 to your TV then. If it doesn't, you'll need to cap it at 30, and then you'll have a much better experience with it, because otherwise you'll have like lots of micro stutters from inaccurate frame timing.
And it's interesting because I was hoping that the Steam Dock was going to represent something that would kind of solve some of these problems. So that's a shame to hear, but I'm glad to hear that there is a way to
Yeah,
circumvent some of these problems. But I think it
I
speaks.
kind of think the Steam Dock comes with the complete docked mode. I don't think that's not in there yet. It doesn't.
I
There's no real
see.
like
Okay.
docked mode, and I think that's partially why we've had the delay on the Steam Dock, because they've clearly been able to ramp up production of the Steam decks themselves, but the dock is AWOL, and I kind of think that when the dock comes out, Valve want that experience where you dock it, it's exactly what you expect. And one of the things we really need is being able to set the resolution that the docked mode outputs. At the moment, it's dictated by what display you put it in, and it's the reason my Steam Deck stopped working with my capture card. The capture card doesn't know what resolution the Steam Deck wants to output. And so then the Steam Deck outputs its native resolution, and my capture card doesn't support 16 by 10. So I end up not being able to capture it at all, which is a real shame. And there's a bunch of other things what I would really like. We have currently the per game performance profiles. I think we need performance profiles for when you're in handheld mode and in docked mode, and it would be great if that could somehow tap into the game, and we have different configuration files that are saved for docked mode and for handheld, because in docked mode, if you're outputting a different resolution, like a slightly higher resolution, you might want to drop it down from, say, 60 frames per second to 30 frames per second if you're going to sacrifice a little bit of the frame rate for resolution, because you're playing it on a much bigger display than you would be in handheld mode.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's something. I think that speaks to like what I am most curious about is if we're ever going to get to a point where there is a version that feels seamless in a way where like you can just go for the from the dock to the handheld experience and feel like it feels like a native game, right? Like it feels like you're playing on like an
Like a
Xbox.
Switch, it's like the Switch experience.
Yeah, and I want it to feel like I'm playing on like a Series S or something like that, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's not true 4K or whatever, but like it looks good enough, it runs well enough. Like,
I don't know that it'll ever feel like a Series S. I feel like it would feel like a fast PS4,
sure,
and that the resolution and the graphics are probably going to be similar to what you would expect to output from a PS4, maxing out at 1080p, more likely hitting that 720p or 900p output with the dynamic resolution scaler. But the frame rate, I think, is really where it's going to suffer. It's going to need to be capped at 30. And that
yeah,
was a big thing we saw last generation, right? Was you get these resolutions because with like techniques like checkerboarding and stuff on the PS4 Pro, but you never hit that 60 frames per second target. We were suffering with 30 frames per second until this generation. And I just don't think the Steam Deck's powerful enough to output those high resolutions at a high frame rate.
yeah, and I think you're right, right? Like that's been my kind of my fear, I guess, is that like, damn, like it's so close to that perfect experience that I'm looking for, and it makes me very very thankful for the crossplay experience that is offered in multiverses, and I feel like crossplay needs to be the next thing that we like try to bully everybody into doing, right? Like in the way
Well,
that
I think we'll touch on that when we get to the
I'm sorry,
PlayStation PC launcher stuff, right? Because that's probably what it's going to be, cross progression,
cross
right? That's what
progression
you're
is what I
talking
meant to
about.
say. I said cross play, and yeah,
Yeah.
cross progression or cross save, whatever you want to say. Yes, yeah, that is something that I really, really feel like is the thing that is going to bring the Steam Deck to the next level, and that is a perfect
Yeah.
segue into our conversation around.
I mean, it's something I kind of expected Microsoft to do before Sony,
Sure,
because they've got games that are on Xbox and on Windows, and the saves don't sync even if I use the Game Pass version of, say, Forza Horizon 5 on PC and Forza Horizon 5 on Xbox. They're two completely different saves, two completely different games. The saves don't sync between the two of them. So all the progress I've made on Xbox in Forza Horizon 5, I was considering buying that game on Steam because I really wanted to play it on my Steam Deck. and I don't want to because I've made so much progress with it on the console. The save won't come over with me, and it really sucks to lose that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think that's the thing that is gonna end up being the deciding factor for me, or more often than not, for not wanting to get a game on Steam to have the ability to play on Steam Deck over on one of these other platforms, right? Because it's like I have Jedi Fallen Order on Steam Deck and I booted it up and I got started with it and I want to keep playing it there, but I also am like when I'm at home and I want to just sit and play it on my TV, that's not an optimal experience, especially when it's on Game Pass and it's free, and I know I can play this beautiful souped up version of it that's going to load better and have a better frame rate and all that junk.
Oh yeah, and it's 4K 60 on the Series X. But I'm interested what resolution and what frame rate you're targeting on it. I presume you've locked it down to 30.
Yeah, I locked it at 30 and then I tried to push it to 40 and it was going okay. And I was like, all right, like this looks a little bit better, a little bit smoother. The resolution was the thing I was struggling with the most, the thing that you were saying about being able to uncap and get like the actual widescreen. It was like,
oh yeah, because you'll have it in just like a box in the middle.
And there was like black bars on the side, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was like trying to like mess with that, but I couldn't get it to output the right way. And that was where I was getting frustrated with it.
Yeah.
But
one like I guess hack that I will say to target 40 is I often set games to 720p regardless of whether I'm playing it docked or on handheld. So I don't mind like black bars top and button when I'm playing handheld. And some games will force them anyway. Days Gone's one of them where it will not support 16 by 10 resolutions, unlike Spider-Man, which does support multiple different screen resolutions. Like you can have an ultra wide 21 by 9 monitor, and you can view all of New York in a ridiculous widescreen. But you get a little bit more performance out of it because there's slightly fewer lines that the game needs to draw. There's like 80 less lines that it needs to draw. And so often if you're around that 38 frames per second mark, set it down to 720p and you'll hit that 40. And 40, you're right, it feels so much smoother than 30, even though it's only 10 frames per second. The difference is night and day. Yeah, honestly, it's ridiculous.
Man, I long for the days when we didn't care about that, actually. Like, I'm so spoiled by it now that I'm just like, if it's less than 60, it's tough, man. Like, I feel like one of those PC guys, from a couple years ago, just like, this is the only way to, like, you can't play in 30
You asked me about Rollerdrome, actually, because I picked it up on, I got a code for it from Private Division, and it was on Steam. So
Thank you so much, by the way.
Deck, and perfect, 60 frames per second, no issues whatsoever at the full native resolution. Yep. But even if it wasn't 40, would be fine with that game, I think. But it feels perfect. I could see why you're interested because you'd probably pick it up on PS5 otherwise.
Yeah, or Xbox.
It's exclusive to PlayStation, right?
Oh, it is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, PlayStation and PC, I believe.
Tell you what, Steve, that's the second perfect segue to our conversation about PlayStation's PC launcher, so I'm taking the opportunity this time, okay? So in Spider-Man, there are multiple references that users were able to call out that seem to be kind of pointing to the idea of a PlayStation PC launcher. So this is something that, there has been a kind of a rumor that originally started over on the Xbox Era podcast. Their co-host Nick Baker referenced a rumor about a PlayStation PC launcher a couple months ago. And there was supposed to be this idea. Well, here, I'll read the quote from Nick. I've been told that they are going to have a PC launcher, and I believe they're looking into implementing cross-buy with that. So if you get a PlayStation version, you get the PC version just like Microsoft has Play Anywhere, which is very interesting for a couple of reasons, right? Like, I mean, obviously for us, very attractive idea, right? Especially if there is if you're having cross-buy, hopefully there's cross progression as well. Because that's the ideal scenario, right? Being able to do all right, if I'm at home and I have access to the television, I can do, the 4K 60 locked, ideal scenario for the game. But if I want to take it on the road, if I'm going to visit my parents, if I'm going away for the weekend, if I'm commuting and I want to just check off boxes in open world, whatever, right? I'll compromise down to 30 FPS or whatever for the Steam Deck screen, and you accept that because it's a handheld experience and that's fine, right? That feels like the dream right, realized. I think that is like the perfect situation for us as, Steam Deck players, right? Like,
Yeah. And you know what? It's kind of like it kind of echoes what we had back in the PS3, PS Vita, and early PS4 era, where they did that cross-buy support. Like you could pick up stuff like Undertale on PS3
yep.
and play it on PSV on the go, and the cross save would come with you.
I played
And
Shovel
it
Knight
kind
that
of
way.
yeah, Shovel Knight was the same. There was a bunch of games like that, and it kind of feels like it's Sony just, if this is true, waving the white flag and just saying, you know what, we gave up with the handheld market after the Vita, and we have no plans on coming back. Go ahead and play these games on PC, whether that's on your laptop, whether that's on a handheld PC like the Steam Deck, or whether that's on like a full rig at home with like a 3080.
So I think this sounds great, right? And take it with a grain of salt that it comes from an Xbox podcast guy. So who knows, right? What is, who knows? But of course, I'm kidding. But this is a thing that you had a theory about quite a long time ago, where you were like, I think this is the direction that they're going. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a PlayStation PC launcher.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Like, do you think this is what's
so
going
much
down?
Sense. Yeah, 100%. So the references that were in the files that people dug around in were PSN account linked and PSN linking entitlements, and then there was a string of text which was PlayStation PC launcher. It was just like written out like that. So I think it's pretty clear that. I mean, it could be that it's a development launcher and they're using it to test it, but I don't think so. Why would that be in a retail copy of the game? So I kind of feel like there is a launcher. I don't know that I believe that cross-buy exists with it.
That feels
like
tough
too good
for
of a
me.
deal
Yeah,
for me.
because they just, we joke about it, right? But like, they're the ones doing the $70. Like, they're not afraid to be like, no, pay us.
Yeah,
No.
because like you buy the game on Steam for 60. Most of their games now are retailing for 70. We haven't seen a Steam game that they're selling yet for 70. I don't know if it's ever going to get there, if they feel like the PC market won't accept it, because I don't think the PC market are very accepting of it.
I think they will.
Square Enix is the only other one that's attempted it.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of backlash about it.
Yeah, but the game still sold well, right? Like, it's like, if people want the
I
game,
think
they'll pay for it, or they'll wait for a
eventually,
sale.
Yeah, people will.
And
Yeah,
like,
or they'll
Steam,
wait for a sale, or they'll buy it on like a CD Keys style website.
right? And like you said, like, you can already get Spider-Man at a discount because it's on PC, and it's like, that's just how that works, right? So like, I feel like that market will adapt to it if the games are attractive enough. That's the question, right?
But I feel like the cross buy I don't see happening. I really don't.
Doesn't feel like a Sony
Cross-progression-
move.
No, it does not. But cross progression, I really feel like it could, and by that I mean the saves, but also trophies. I feel like PSN trophy support would be huge. Being able to collect the platinum trophy for a third time for you, Pete, with Spider-Man on the PC version.
Fucking
would be
bless. Let's do it.
amazing.
I'm doing it, baby. I'm going crazy. I haven't done it on Remastered yet. I'm excited. I'm like, let's fucking go.
Oh shit! You're gonna do that one on Steam Deck rather than on your PlayStation? Do you think?
Well, if I want to do it 3 times, I got to do it on both.
Yeah.
Who's to say? I feel like what I might do is play it for like just for funsies on Steam Deck and stream it on PlayStation 5 maybe, and like turn it into like a maybe I'll do some of it off stream and then like get towards the end of it and then be like, let's do the platinum run or whatever. I don't know, but I think that could be a fun thing to do. I've been like looking for a reason to replay this game, and then they're like, it's coming to PC, and I'm like, all right,
that's a good enough reason.
Let's do it, right? For sure.
But I feel like aside from that, like friends lists as well is a big one, especially with their big jump into live service games that's
going to be
aiming
important
for with the acquisition of Bungie. It's going to be massively important. They want a cohesive friends list. For some reason, their investment into Discord, we haven't seen the fruits of that investment yet. We have on Xbox, like there is integration with Discord coming to Xbox. It's in insider builds at the moment. And I feel like just their own launcher, where you can download their free-to-play games for free, presumably they'll chuck the Bungie titles on there as well. So if you want to go and pick up Destiny 2 for free, you go download it on the PlayStation PC launcher, just like Epic does with Fortnite, and you can play with your friends on PC or your friends list on PlayStation. You can jump in, and it's like a cohesive platform.
And then I think the interesting question becomes, what does that mean for PlayStation games on Steam, right? And by extension
Yeah,
on Steam Deck,
that's a big
right?
concern for me because obviously with when Epic acquired Fall Guys, it was there for a good while because the game was published by Devolver. But that license agreement obviously either ran out or they bought the contract out, and they have now since taken it off of Steam. I do not want to see any of these PlayStation games go away from Steam. Maybe the cross-buy would be an incentive to use their launcher and get locked into their platform. And maybe
That's
they're a little bit more
interesting.
expensive in that way. But I still want to see them on other platforms because yes, you can install games from other marketplaces on the Steam Deck because it is just a PC, but it's a pain in the ass in comparison to just clicking a download button on Steam. You have to go around the houses and use a bunch of flat packs from the Discover store, and it's like I don't want to do any of that really. I want to download it. I want to have the benefits of running a game from the Steam store on the Steam Deck, which is I get all that shader pre-caching and I get all those updates that come in, and it's like it does all the legwork for me, and the updates are done within the gaming mode rather than me having to go out to the PC mode to download the update to then go back to the gaming mode and use things like Boiler to get it into Steam in the first place. Like there's a whole lot of legwork, and yeah, it can be worth it because I played a bunch of Far Cry 6 on Steam Deck, downloading it from the Ubisoft store because those games are not on Steam at all. But it would have been so much easier if I could have just clicked download. I probably would have paid a premium for it. I probably would have paid an extra tenner in order to buy the game on Steam rather than downloading it from someone else's launcher because it's just not worth the hassle.
I'm I'm worried about that. Like I don't I could very much see them doing the like, hey, like we're doing this is our play, and if you want to play our games, you got to come to our launcher, and that is what it is. But hopefully, there'll be some kind of, like maybe like to your point, maybe that's the trade off, right? They're like, oh, you could buy it on Steam or on the Epic Game Store, or but if you get it here, it's connected to your PlayStation account in a way that it's not over there or whatever. But
Yeah.
but I don't know,
That's
right?
another way you like abolish because they could do it right because at the moment they're chucking 30% of every sale Valve's way or Epic's way.
Right.
They could take that cost and give you the other version on their other platform that they also own. The cross progression's there anyway, so you probably wouldn't have bought two copies of the game if that was the case, because you're just going to play it on the platform that you've got. If you didn't get the other version of the game, you probably wouldn't pick it up if you didn't already own it. And it's a way to once again degrade physical sales and push more people towards digital. They've got a digital only console now. They clearly want people to go digital because they get to keep all of the money. They don't have to split it with any other retailer, and it makes sense from a business perspective. The other aspect to it is like, what does this mean for PlayStation Plus? Do we get like the things like the PlayStation Plus plans? Do they come over to the PC launcher? Are we able to pay for that like Microsoft has Xbox Game Pass on PC? Do we have PlayStation Plus on PC and some of those titles come over? Because obviously Spider-Man's on PlayStation Plus now. Can I play that on PC? Or is that not going to be part of their angle?
Maybe long term, but I feel like they're still figuring out what that play is on console, right? So it's like the idea of it like coming and being analogous. I feel like that's tough because there's a lot of games on that service that are not PlayStation games. So it's like, do they have a PC version that they can put on the launcher? How does that work? Can you buy third-party games on the PlayStation launcher? Like, no. Then if not, how do you access? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of question marks there that I feel like we'd have to know more about what the PlayStation PC launcher is before, like, because if it's literally just the PlayStation Network store on PC and any game that you could buy like on Steam, right? Like theoretically you could also buy it on the PlayStation launcher, and it's like a competing launcher in the way that like Epic's is. That's a whole other conversation than this is analogous to like the Ubisoft store or the EA launcher, right? Where it's like, it's just our
It's just
games.
for their games, yeah.
Yeah.
But even if it was just their games and they included the games that were their games from their subscription service,
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a good angle to get people locked into their subscription plan because who wouldn't pay $120 a year for a subscription plan if you were gonna buy Spider-Man and Miles Morales anyway? That was already going to cost you $120 on PC anyway. Although I don't think they've released the pricing for Miles Morales yet. That one might be a little bit cheaper because
Yeah,
it's slightly
probably.
cheaper on PS5. But say it's $100, you've got the two games that you were going to play. Anything else is like a bonus from there and out.
Yeah. It's interesting because like I could kind of see it going either way. Like if Sony is really like committed to embedding themselves in the PC marketplace, it behooves them, I think, to play ball with Steam because there's a huge segment of gamers that like, there's people in our audience, right? Like Zayd always makes a joke about it where it's like he doesn't want to buy a game on the Epic launcher, right? Like, and if it's exclusive to the Epic launcher, he'll wait, right? Or get it on console. And like,
And I'm kind of the same because Ooblets announced today, as of time of recording, their 1.0 release. It's on September 17th, or September 1st, sorry. And I'm not going to pick it up because I replied to their Twitter account and a Steam release is seemingly on the way. There's a coming soon page on Steam. They just don't have a date for it yet. And I really want to play that game on Steam Deck because I feel like it would play better on Steam Deck than it will on Switch. And I want to play that kind of game handheld. So I'm holding out and I refused to buy it on the Epic Game Store because I had such an awful 3 hour long journey to get Fall Guys installed on my Steam Deck, and
right.
I don't want to go through that because every single time it's go back to desktop mode to update the game, and you don't get notified that there's an update. You just have to kind of know that there's an update and go and get it, unlike a Steam game. So I am one of those players now because I play all of my PC games on Steam Deck. I don't have
Right.
another PC.
Yeah.
Like that's the only place I play them. So I want to buy the games on Steam, and it would be really upsetting if the PlayStation launcher meant that the Steam sales went away. I really hope that it doesn't, and I don't think it will. I think it's just going to be an enhanced experience for those that want it, those that are in the kind of PSN anyway, and they want to stay there with their friends and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. Because I definitely agree with you for the same reason, right? Where it's like the only place I play PC games is these days is on my Steam Deck. So by default, like I'm in the Steam ecosystem, right? And already was anyway. That's my preferred launcher between the two. So I don't really have interest in going through the steps that I would need to go through to make the PlayStation launcher work on Steam Deck. So I feel like if this transition happens, it would dissuade me from wanting to play those games on PC, and I would just stick to playing them on PlayStation, which is where I'm going to play them anyway for the most part, right? Like, I really see it as being like a game like Spider-Man, which I've already played through and beat more than once. It's kind of like, yeah, if I want to replay it again and I want the benefit of being able to like play it in bed on my Steam Deck, then yeah, that's great. That's a perfect use case for playing it on Steam Deck, right? But like, I'm not going to wait to play, whatever, like The Last of Us Part.
Horizon Forbidden West or
Sure.
whatever. Like you're not
Sure.
going to wait for that to come to Steam because you want to play it and you're really excited about it, and that's
Well,
fair enough. Even though it will come to Steam at some point.
And even so, right, I'd rather play that game on PlayStation just because I'd rather have it be on my TV and 60 frames per second. And for all the reasons we just discussed, that you can't really get that experience. You can get close to it, but, like,
Gotta say, I feel like I'm a very different player to you. I primarily play handheld these days, and that's a lot to do with the fact that my TV where my consoles are connected to is in the living room. It's in a shared space, and I have like a sense of guilt that when my partner gets home from work, I don't want to be hogging the TV after they've just worked a 12-hour shift. Like I want to spend time with them and also give them freedom to use the shared space if they want to. So I'll often lie on the other couch and be on my Steam Deck while they're using the TV, and we're still like hanging out together and doing stuff, but we're doing our own things in the same shared space. And that's why I've played so many AAA games on my Steam Deck. Like I've completed Resident Evil 3 remake. I'm in the middle of Days Gone. Like these games are AAA premium experiences, and they run great on Steam Deck. And some of them I kind of feel like are really at home there. Like I've had such a good time with Days Gone as an open world experience. The same with Far Cry 6. Because I can lie down on my couch and do that boring, like go here, go there, those kind of quests. And I'm not they're kind of mundane. I can have the TV on in the background, and they work as like good TV games in those points. But then I can also put my headphones on and concentrate on the cutscenes when I need to. Like they work so well. Like Days Gone was way more cutscene heavy than I thought, but I still had a really good time with it on Steam Deck.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think my experience is kind of inverted, right? Where like the ways that my partner primarily plays games are on her Switch or on her gaming laptop, right? And like, she's like,
so I'm Sarah in your case, and
right,
like you are Macaulay in my case, and like you use the TV. So
yeah. And like that's where I do the majority of my gaming, right? Like, and even like like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 I'm playing right now over on Switch, and like I'm playing that docked on my television because it looks better, right? And it's a better experience that way. And I think
interesting. That's unusual. Usually the docked experience is usually the crappier of the two.
Yeah,
especially for Xenoblade games.
No. And Xenoblade, it's the opposite. It's in docked.
Oh no, I thought I was sure that Chewie said that they looked. Oh no, maybe you're right. They look crap on one of them.
They look bad in handheld. Yeah, because I remember him saying like I was complaining about like it's like in 540 I think. So it just looks kind of like smudgy, and he's like, well, it's a lot better than it used to be. Like it didn't even really run in handheld very well before. So.
And I mean, I had like the opposite experience to that with Pokemon. I thought it looked like shit on my TV, and I was just like, "There's no way I'm playing this on TV." So I just played the whole thing handheld.
And that to me is ultimately my mentality about it. Where it sounds like for you, it's like the convenience of the Steam Deck outweighs whatever compromises that you're going to have to make technologically. And I think for me as somebody who like does kind of approach games in like a pretty platform agnostic way, right? Where it's like I have a PlayStation, I have an Xbox, I have a Switch, I have a Steam Deck, right? And where I play a game is based on how it serves me the best at that time, right? So like, I have been playing Multiverses primarily on my Steam Deck and then on my Xbox as well when I am like, oh, I just want to sit and play on the TV, and I want to play Multiverses. That's been my way to play. But because I'm playing Xenoblade right now, my habit with that game has shifted more towards I'm playing it on Steam Deck, either because I'm playing with my friend Jack, who's also on a Steam Deck, and we can hop on Steam Chat and just talk into the Steam Deck while we're playing, and it's super seamless and easy.
Oh, I've not tried that, actually. Let's talk more about that next week.
It's great. Yeah, we can talk about that, and we should try it together, too, so you can get a sense, because it's really, really easy. It's the internal microphone's really good. So I'm doing it that way, or I'm playing in bed as like, hey, like I'm going upstairs and I'm trying to wind down, but I still want to like play for a little bit. So like I'll play, for maybe an hour or so upstairs or whatever. So like that to me is so like integral to where I decide where I'm going to play something, right? Is like, is the Steam Deck going to be the best way for me to play this? Is the first question for me, more so than like, how can I get this to be the best experience on Steam Deck? If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. You just look at it as a whole and just be like, I want the best experience. And to be honest, I don't think for the majority of AAA titles that's ever going to be on Steam Deck for you. So unless the main draw is I want to replay this game and it's not my first time playing through it, in the case of Spider-Man, that's probably going to be the only time you go for
that's
it.
That's like a perfect use case for me, right? Like, I love that idea.
Yeah, I was just never going to play Days Gone. I would have passed it up. I wouldn't have picked it up on PS5, I don't think, because I don't know, I saw the game and I was like, I don't give a shit about this. But when it was on sale on Steam Deck and it was like 20 quid, I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll pick it up and I'll give it a try. And I'm about halfway through the game, and it's I'm about to reach like a real turning point in the game, and I'm excited for it. I'm still having a good time with it, slowly chipping away at it. I wish I'd played. I wish more games I want to play were on Steam Deck. I think the only time I wouldn't really opt to play a game there is if it's only available on another platform, or if it's on something like Game Pass. Like if it's on Game Pass and I'm subscribed to it, I don't think I would double dip and pay for it, especially considering I'm already subscribed to it. But yeah, I'm hoping at some point Game Pass comes to Steam as well.
That's the dream. That'll be a total game changer.
Yeah.
But we'll learn more about this as it comes, right? It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think it's very clear that PlayStation wants to make a play on PC in a big way.
Do you think it's imminent though? Like, do you think we're going to see that this year, or do you think it's next year?
I think the fact that there are references in this game, and there weren't references, or we didn't find references to it in previous games, makes me think that it's imminent, or at least more imminent.
I mean, it could well be that this was one of the tasks that Nixies was, given.
Mm-hmm.
Like they acquired Nixies, port the 2 Spider-Man games, and also this is our strategy. We really want like a PlayStation PC launcher.
Yeah, it could be. So I mean, this feels like one of those things that we could either hear about it in the next 6 months, or it could be maybe 18 months away. Like, I don't think it's much further than that though, right? Like the fact that we see a mention of it in a game that came out this year makes me think it's got to be around the corner, right? They're building the technology, and they wanted this game to be ready to take advantage of it when it does launch. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a patch for the other games that gets this added somewhere sooner or later. Right? Maybe it's there already and it's just better hidden, but who's to say? But this feels like a where there's smoke, there's fire thing, right? Like it's.
I agree. Yeah, I think if they implement cross-buy, they're going to piss a hell of a lot of people off who just bought the game for $60 if it comes out within the next few months.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, hey, so Sony doesn't really care about pissing people off when it comes to charging the money, right? I think that's what we figured out about them this generation. So. We'll see what happens, Maybe the really, truly wild thing will be that they will honor it on other platforms. But, like, if you already double dipped, then it's kind of like whatever, right? But, like, who's to say? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Well, you link your Steam account to your PS5. It goes the other way.
Why not?
Could be, yeah.
They're going to do that with Discord. How is that? It's not that different, right? Like, as long as you're buying PlayStation games, does it really matter?
No, I guess it doesn't.
I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens there. But time will tell on that one. But we'll definitely be here to cover it on the next episode of the Steam Deck podcast. So thank you all so much for joining us here in episode 2. Thank you again to the warm reaction to episode 1. If you want to write in and be part of the show and write in with your questions, your comments, maybe your idea for a main topic, please hit us up at questions@flipscreen.games. Come and join our Discord, where we have a thread for the Steam Deck podcast where every week we get there and ask for questions, so you can come and be a part of the community that way and get your thoughts right on the air. And I think that's probably the best way to do it, right? Come join the Discord. Come be a part of it. We have a good, fun, inclusive community of gamers over there for you. So as long as you're nice and a good egg, you'll be welcome to come and hang out amongst us. So come and keep the conversation with us rolling over there. We'd love to have you. And of course, head over to flipscreen.games. You can find links to our Patreon, where you can get early access to this show and our sister shows, Nintendo Noise and Flipscreen Game Podcast. You can get access to our Patreon exclusive show, One More Thing, and a bunch of other cool perks and goodies, including getting your name read on the air if you become a Patreon producer, among other things. So however you choose to get involved, however you choose to show your support, we appreciate you, and thank you for tuning in for episode 2 of the Steam Deck Podcast. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.